Dang, look at that. Great big 40 amp. That's pretty serious. Hey, what's up, Speedy's Garage gang? Welcome back to the Speedy's Garage YouTube channel. You guys that have been following along know that I have installed a red-eye 2.7 liter supercharger under the hood of Go Man Go over here. I'll show you that real quick. And it's been working really well. Better than expected, to be honest. And it was worked over by SDG Motorsports, so it's got their billet end plate, more airflow. It's got their rotors in it with proprietary coating to keep things cooler. I did the FI Interchiller spacers and blanket at the same time, and I put on a 2.85 pulley. The goal was about 20 pounds of boost. I didn't want to go over that because you start going too high and you start having some other little problems, like the bypass valve can give you some issues. You start running out of fuel system again, like I already did initially. I now have the dual pump drop-in fuel system in the car. You can have some other stuff go on, so I didn't want to go too crazy, and I'm still going to drive this car on the street, so I wanted to be able to work with flex fuel, which I've still got to sort out. I'm probably going to be limited to black key mode when I'm running 93 octane, just to be super safe. I don't need to be out wide open throttle on 93 anymore. To me, 93 is going to be more like go to the grocery store fuel. E85 is what I'm going to run. I'm lucky to have it everywhere around here, so that's what I'm going to run most of the time. Doing some data logging, I saw something a little odd. The fuel system is doing okay, but I did notice fuel pressure dropping a little bit. So about 5,800 RPM, I'll start to see the fuel pump duty cycle go up, and I'll show you a little picture of a data log here. This is kind of how it works. The fuel pumps are variable in these cars, so they get varying amounts of pressure based on, I'll call it boost. It's not really boost, but that's what I'm going to call it just to make it simple. And so as boost climbs and RPM climb, so does fuel pressure. And on a regular Hellcat, the fuel pressure maxes out, commanded to around 80 PSI. In a red-eye, the SRT engineers command 100 PSI, which to me seems like quite a bit. 80 is actually really high. My old car was set to 58. So 80 is actually quite a bit of fuel pressure. But what I would notice is at about 5,800 RPMs, I would see the fuel pump's duty cycle max out, which means they're giving all they can give. And I would start to watch the fuel pressure lower a little bit. So it's commanding 80, but in the logs, I would see 74, 75, somewhere around in there as the RPMs climb. And especially with cooler air coming, I don't want to take any chances on the fuel system. The good news is the fuel injector duty cycle, which is kind of like the fuel pump duty cycle, that goes up and it's a percentage of maximum. So I personally don't ever like to see my injectors go over about 85%. I like that 15% of overhead to know that the fuel injectors still have some headroom in them and I'm not on the edge of anything. So the fuel injector duty cycle was around 65 to 70%, which is good. And the other thing to look at is injector pulse width. So that is telling the injector how long to stay open. It's a pulse of electricity is a way to think of it. And when it pulses, the injector stays open. Once you get over a certain amount, the injector's just open. And that kind of ties back to duty cycle. So that's sort of how the fuel system works. The fuel injector, duty cycle, and pulse width were all good to go. So I felt pretty comfortable there. I didn't really like the fact that the fuel pressure was dropping back from a commanded 80 PSI. Not bad, it was dropping back to like 74, 75 like I said, but I did not like that the fuel pumps were maxed out. So to solve that, I've got a new little part that should be super easy to install. It's not something I would normally recommend if you're running out of fuel system like duty cycle or injector pulse width. You don't want to use it as a band-aid there, but if you're just going to use it to give the pumps a little bit of overhead in like really good air, I think this is the way to go, and I'll show you what I picked up. So here's my solution. This is a JMS Fuelmax, and it is basically a booster pump, which I haven't really been a fan of, but I'll tell you why I like this one. This one actually ties into the throttle position sensor. You can actually set this thing up at what point it kicks on when you're wide open throttle. Only then does it increase the voltage to the pumps when you need it most. Get that extra fuel flow out of those pumps. My plan is to only use just enough. I don't need it giving it, this thing can do between 18, up to 18 on setting 1 or up to 22 volts on setting 2. I'm planning to set mine to 18, which is the lower of the two. And then, even then, I'm only gonna give it a volt or two, and just enough to keep those fuel pumps from being maxed out and make sure I have plenty of fuel pressure. Let's see what's in the box. So here's the driver, or the actual unit itself. It's got some dip switches. I'll talk about those in a minute. And here's how you set up your input and output. The input's a voltage, like I said, for your throttle position sensor, and the output is percent of maximum. We'll have to play with that a little bit until we get it exactly where we need it, but just enough, and that's the plan. You can see it comes with a pretty nice harness. Those are the FPDM connections, I believe. Probably should be two of those. Yep, there's the other one. Feels very sturdy. Really good weather wrap on it. Ooh, I like that they're all weather pack connector. You can see how that looks. Pretty nice unit. And I did buy this with my own money. I wish I could say it was sponsored, but it is not. So pretty basic. And then you'll have, like I said, it's got a great big fuse. I'm gonna look and see. Dang, look at that. Great big 40 amp. That's pretty serious. Great big old fuse. And then let's see, this must be connection to the throttle. Really nice badge. Extra pieces here, a little screwdriver, I guess, for setting the dip switches. Man, that's actually pretty nice. A couple of spare fuses and some instructions and a decal. And I'll give you a quick look at the instructions. Let's be honest, we don't need these where we're going. It does show all the connections and stuff, which I think is important to understand. It shows some parts that should come in it. Everything looks good to me. And all of the instructions, and I knew about this before I got it, are for a Mustang. So they do not have written instructions for a Dodge platform. Good thing you got me. And then how to set it up, and we'll go over that. We'll go over that at the end. And then this goes in line with your throttle position sensor to activate it. Super easy and simple design. And when it comes to this kind of stuff, I'm a KISS kind of guy. Keep it simple, stupid. So that's the reason I went with this. Again, I do not recommend it if your fuel system is at the limit on injector at all. The only reason I'm using this is to give the fuel pumps just another volt or two so that they aren't running at 100%, trying to keep up with the injectors. We should be good to go. I would rather split the voltage across two pumps. So if I give it 10%, let's say I need 3 volts, just as a good even number. I need 3 volts of extra voltage to meet what I need. I would rather have 1.5 volts, 1.5 on each pump rather than 3 volts extra on one pump. Hope that makes sense. You're dividing that extra voltage by 2 if you run it across both pumps, and then you're barely feeding it more than it would have had from the factory anyway, and the car won't even notice. So I spent a few minutes talking about the JMS Fuelmax. I did the dual and why I went that direction. Now we're going to get it installed on Go Man Go. It's literally plug and play, so that piece of it is not technically difficult. I think running the throttle position sensor wire to the front of the car, see how complicated I can make that. I like the wiring that I add to the car to follow factory wiring, so I'm going to have to kind of look into that. Hopefully the rear seat delete we have in the car is easy to work around. We're going to get after that install now. We're going to start in the trunk. Here's everything wrapped up. Got the zip tie on the Fuelmax box, Velcro to the battery. All the wiring's tucked away nice and neat, out of the way. These connections ran back this way, up, it'll go underneath the liner, and then FPDMs and everything are connected up there. Everything should be good to go. We can start putting the panels back in. And channel members got to see the trials and tribulations I went through to get this thing to work. If you have a Demon, a Red Eye, or a Trackhawk, something that came from the factory with 2 fuel pumps, it'll be plug and play, easy peasy, I expect. If you have a dual drop-in system like Go Man Go has, you can expect some trouble with the dual output JMS Fuelmax. I have got it working good enough. It's taking care of business and keeping that fuel pressure up like you saw. However, I do want it to work even better like it's supposed to, so I'm going to keep troubleshooting that wiring until I get it figured out. And I want to thank you guys that have joined the channel. I wasn't sure how that would work out. It's actually doing very well, so thanks for the support. More install, how-to, and all that will be under the channel members section. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. Be sure to check us out on Instagram. It's at Speedys_garage, as well as the website, www.speedysgarage.net. And hopefully, I'll see you out there.